All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast. We're recording episode number 66 here for our November 2nd episode, and we are going to be talking about the trade deadline, some boom weeks, and week 9 preparation. Before we get started here, we'll say hello to the fellas, and then we will kickstart the episode here. Maybe we'll say hello to Zach first. I know, Zach, you said you're feeling a little under the weather.
Yeah, you bet. Every year, without fail, as soon as football season wraps up, I usually get sick a week or two later, and kind of started a little bit there on Sunday with a bit of a sore throat, but thought that was from hanging out with the friends there on the weekend and maybe having a couple too many drinks or whatever. But nope, it's a cold.
The full-on battle. And then Armin, how about yourself? It's been keeping you busy last week.
Well, we unfortunately lost this week in the league semifinal, but high school football is over for us now, so I got a little bit more time to concentrate on fantasy football. So that's kind of nice, I guess. So glass half full kind of guy right now.
I'm trying to remember the last time, Armin, I've seen you without facial hair. This is a tough sight here. It's almost, it caught me off guard the first, but I was like, who the hell's logged in an Armin Zoom here? It's been a long time since I've seen you without facial hair.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's probably been about a year. It's November now, so Movember time. So I think I'm going to be joining a team of a few other teachers here. So maybe I'll let Jordan know, and he can throw it in our socials there for if you want to donate, I guess. But yeah, it should be fun. I'm gonna let my class decide what style of mustache I grow. And like Kylie told me I looked like an 18-year-old yesterday. I've had multiple kids be like, "Who is that?" and then be like, "Oh, it's Mr. Schellenberg." So feeling young, feeling a little spry today.
Oh, absolutely. Man, I'm beat up a little bit. We had a busy week last week, and we wrapped up the week on the Thursday with our school dance for the elementary kids. So that was, imagine, a lot of energy put into that on the Thursday night, and then Friday coming into a busy weekend, and now Halloween obviously on Monday. And for those of you that are unaware of, elementary is a difficult place the day after a Halloween, so it was a tough day at work today. But we got to talk fantasy football, and that's not the worst thing in the world. So getting things started here. Before we talk about the quick question of the week here, we got I was talking some trades. Man, this was a fun week to watch fantasy football, you guys. Like, we talked about it last episode, it's been slow scoring, not a lot of touchdowns, not a lot of big weeks. I think we made out for the last 7 weeks all in one, because watching that Sunday slate, it was like another touchdown, another touchdown. Oh my God, another touchdown. And I threw in our group chat real quick. I dibsed the player. Zach was talking about him. I was like, yeah, dibs him. I want him for my stud of the week. And then there was like 9 studs of the week in a row right after. It was incredible. But oh man, I enjoyed this one. How did the teams look out for you guys here at these boom weeks?
Absolutely awful. I won in one league, and it's the league I don't want to win, and it's the dynasty where I'm in rebuild mode. So
So you're on the other end of it.
Yeah, I was getting crapped on. The guy I was playing in the staff league had Kamara and Pollard on his team, so I just got my hopes and dreams crushed.
That was my start of the week. I'll just put that one back out. Zach, how about you? A couple big performances I see.
Yeah, I did okay. I think I went 2 and 3. Had some high scores in all of them, but kind of ran into a couple of buzzsaws there where the other guy would have a few other studs too. So is what it is, I guess. But looking forward to putting it all back together next week here.
I was talking about this earlier, and I said 10 of 12, but then on the Monday night, I ended up pulling together a victory. So I won in 11 of 12 leagues, which is kind of unheard of, which is like pretty rare for my teams. But I had 10 of 12 leagues. I was the number 1 point getter. And the one league I lost in, I was the number 2 point getter. It was a tough loss there, but But I have so many of the similar players on so many of my teams, so when they boomed, all the teams boomed, but that was nice, but, my one team, I think I'm, like, 2-7 or 2-6 now. It's like I could use some of those points earlier on in the early weeks here, and just didn't necessarily need it for that one, but hopefully, like you said, Zach, hopefully continuing some of these, big scores into this upcoming week here, and, we'll start that off with our quick question, 22 fresh quick question of the week for the week number 9, and we're gonna talk about a ton of trades here coming up. So we're gonna, I guess, preface some of them by this discussion here. But who are some of the players that we are very very excited about moving forward for fantasy, based on the most recent trade deadline, which is happening today as we recorded. So I'm gonna start this one off, and my obvious answer would be I'm really excited about CMC. We've already got to see him in action twice. Once was like right after the trade, and then the second one was the big production. But I'm going to talk about Chase Claypool, and I'm really excited about Claypool because we've seen him boom, we've seen the athleticism, and we've seen the production. But unfortunately, with the depth and wide receiver position for Pittsburgh, it's been difficult, and we haven't really got to see a whole heck of a lot of it. Now in a fresh start, and I would presume he's going to be hyper targeted. And between himself and Mooney, now like we've seen Equimanius, is that how you pronounce it? St. Brown, the other St. Brown brother. We've seen production come from him. So I can only imagine that with a super talented wide receiver stepping into that role with a fresh start, an opportunity to boom. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a new fresh start for Chase Claypool, and I'm excited to see what happened there because for the most part he was just about dead to everybody in fantasy football. So I think it's a new fresh start and see where this athleticism can take him on a new franchise. Zach, you want to talk about yours?
Sure. Who's the like the GM in Jacksonville? Is that Trent Baalke? I think.
Sounds right. Let me find out here.
Well, we're just gonna speculate it's Trent Baalke. Trent Baalke just did a perfect. Love it when I get stuff right. He just did a bit of a dynasty buy low by trading for Calvin Ridley from the Falcons. Ridley, this year he's suspended. Last year he was battling injuries and some mental health stuff before he eventually got suspended. But he missed most of last year. But even up to the beginning of last season, he was, in a lot of circles valued as a top 10 dynasty wide receiver. Was just coming off a very successful season where he was like a top 10 receiver, I believe. So this is a trade that in the event he is reinstated at the end of this year, he could be a huge beneficiary from this trade deadline where he's in a position in Jacksonville where he's coming into a receiver room that really only has Christian Kirk, and they don't necessarily play the same role or position at receiver. And I think this is a really good match for the offense they run in Jacksonville and for Ridley himself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And if you're Trevor Lawrence truther in Dynasty there, it's obviously the more weapons for him, the better for him too. So you could talk about him being a beneficiary obviously for this trade too, if like you said, if he does get reinstated kind of thing. Armin, who are you want to talk about here?
All right. Well, you sniped my guy Chase Claypool because my trade that I made earlier in the year in Dynasty just keeps looking better and better because I got Pickens and Claypool, and now Claypool has a chance to be potentially the wide receiver one there, but at least the wide receiver two in Chicago. But I'm gonna talk about Nyheim Hines going to Buffalo. Never really been that impressed with that running back room there. They drafted James Cook this summer or spring, and I was a little excited about that. But now they have a guy who's a proven playmaker, might match well with Allen's abilities as well, over what the other guys bring to the table. And he's a little jitterbug, and he can get good yards after the catch, and he can run the ball off tackle as well really well. I think this is a move that really puts the nail in the coffin with Buffalo's offense there, and I don't see how you stop him going forward now with Hines there. I'm talking him up quite a bit with him being a backup, but it's exciting to see a more proven back in that backfield there.
Well, he's a guy you've seen big production from when JT was hurt, and then also even before JT, that first bit. I think it was his first year. He had that real rough first half of the season, and JT really produced in the second half. You saw a lot of good fantasy production from Hines, like some big fantasy production actually. So I mean, it's been a few years since we've seen, or a year and a bit since we've seen that, but you definitely know he's capable of it, and he is a very good receiving back. So I'm curious on not only how much work he will get in the receiving room, but also what this is going to do for James Cook, because we have seen him struggle holding on to the football. So this might be James Cook sit back and watch and learn while Hines steps into that role. Well, now that we talked about the trades, I guess we can go into a couple more. There's one other trade that I really want to talk about that I'm actually rather excited about, but we'll hit the drop and we'll get started.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
So we talked about the Claypool trade, being traded to Chicago for a second-round pick. The Calvin Ridley trade, which he's going to Jacksonville, and it's very complex, I guess, the way that the chips may lie. It's all based on compensation, or like playing and et cetera, all different variables. But the maximum compensation they will receive is a 23rd fifth-round pick and a 24th second-round pick. As Zach has mentioned, is a all-time buy low. If you're talking about dynasty value, that's for sure. And then we talked about the Nyheim Hines trade, where Hines is gone to Buffalo, Hines and a 6th-round pick, and they received Zach Moss and a 5th-round pick. A couple other trades. Chase Edmonds was involved in the Denver trade that sent Bradley Chubb to Miami. So Chase Edmonds is now to Denver in a part of that deal. TJ Hockenson, this was one the rumor started, I think it was yesterday, the day before that, his name was being thrown around, and that trade happened this morning. TJ Hockenson was traded to Minnesota Vikings for Hockenson in a conditional 4th for a 2nd round and a 4th round pick. So Detroit really hitting the reset button, sending away Hockenson, who was definitely a fan favorite in Detroit, but fortunately just had some injury history, and I don't know if that's part of the problem or part of the story or whatnot, but I'm going to talk about this one in a sec. I'm going to go through a couple more. Jeff Wilson to Miami, replacing Edmonds after he had left from So Wilson coming up from San Francisco. So we had a few big moves, but I want to talk about this Hockenson one. I know Armin, obviously there's a lot to be excited for you as a Vikings fan that this is another weapon for that offense, but for fantasy, is it equal sign, is it greater sign, or is it less than sign? So maybe Armin, give your reaction as a Vikings fan, and then I'll ask that secondary question to Zach.
Okay, as a Vikings fan, it's always good to get another weapon. Irv Smith, as much potential as he has, and we've been hoping for him to break out, he just hasn't, and Hockenson definitely is an upgrade at the tight end position. So another weapon is awesome now. Kirk Cousins has Jefferson, Hockenson, Thielen, and I'm actually a huge fan of KJ Osborne. He's a little underrated. So 4 passing weapons that are legit, like good players that can make big plays happen, are good at catching contested and just making possession catches, all of them. So this is awesome. It's deadly for the offense, and I'm excited to see what the Vikings do this year. They were a little underrated going into the season, and this has got to keep them in the lead for sure in that NFC North division, and hopefully they can find themselves in a good playoff matchups and make a push here. Actually, I'm actually getting excited for playoffs with them.
Yeah, that'll teach me to bet for the Packers here, because they need a steamroll for the NFC North there. But I'll ask that secondary question, you, Zach. Is this a greater than, less than, or equal to sign for fantasy value?
For Hockenson?
Yes.
Oof. I'm going to say maybe a greater than sign, but like very cautiously optimistic. I would say without the news of Irv Smith going on IR today as well, that would have changed my opinion. But now that he's kind of the tight end in town, I'm going to say it's maybe a little bit of a step up for him, just with the quarterback being a little bit of a better quarterback, in my opinion. And looking at last year, when Tyler Conklin was on the Vikings last year, he had, I want to see, 87 targets and 61 receptions. Mind you, that was a different offense, different coaching staff, but if there's any parallels that we can draw, he will get some targets, I think. And hopefully that bodes well for his fantasy success.
They like to throw the ball in the red zone a lot too, so I think that maybe is going to increase Hawkinson's touchdown probability, because this year the only touchdowns we've seen from him has been those long breakaway touchdowns. Again, in the red zone, it's been Jamal Williams' time. Jamal Williams, I think he's either leading the NFL or tied for the lead in the NFL for touchdowns right now, which is absolutely absurd. So I think the touchdown opportunity for him, and then the opportunity for checkdowns is going to go up too. And this is something that might hurt Dalvin Cook a little bit too, maybe in those swing routes. So there's underneath routes coming out of the backfield is something to monitor too. But I see it similar as you, Zach. I see that equals, possibly greater than sign. It's weird because Detroit has been scoring so many points and their offense has been so productive, but Hawkinson's only been productive based on injuries. As soon as Amonra's back, it seems like he kind of goes into the background. So I'm curious to see what this happens. Obviously, it sucks as a Lions fan. We're hitting the reset button awfully early again. It's a common trend here, but it is what it is.
See, I would have gone opposite of you guys. I would have been equal, maybe less than, just because they don't use the tight ends very much except in the red zone. So he's very much touchdown dependent now with the Vikings, whereas he might have had a little bit more value in the between the 20s with Detroit than he does with the Vikings. But we'll see what happens here. He is ultra athletic. He is very tall. He's a lot bigger than Irv Smith. He might get a lot more targets than I'm thinking.
I think this is going to hurt Thielen the most out of anybody, period. Like, because Thielen is like the touchdown guy. Thielen is kind of, I think they play a very similar role. I think what Hawkins can step into is playing that Thielen type role, right? So I'm curious to see what that will do. I think that's going to be the biggest falter for fantasy coming out of this trade, but only time will tell coming out of that one. So talking about, obviously, we're talking about the Vikings tight ends now. Irv Smith was placed on IR, so that kind of obviously was what prompted this trade to happen, with an ankle injury without a timeline of return. So that's obviously one of the indicators of why this trade had happened, as well as Rashad Bateman played on the Thursday nighter last week, and he had a foot injury. He played, said he was healthy, ready to play. I think he played like maybe 5 or 6 snaps, got 1 target, foot injury, and then put up a goose egg for a lot of fantasy managers, which was very frustrating. They felt like the foot injury he was going to be fine to be able to bounce back from. It is not as originally reported or as originally anticipated, and he is going to expect to miss some time here, looking like a couple of weeks. So if you have Rashad Bateman, you're going to have to look to pivot to the waiver wire to replace him for this next couple of weeks, because he is expected to miss some time. Wrapping up the remainder of this week here, we're going to get into studs and duds. But before we do so, it's getting chilly out there, folks. Snow is starting to hit the ground. I know right now my wife is in Saskatoon. She said it's raining. I'm sure Zach can testify to that. Here in PA, it was kind of snowing and spitting off and on all day. It's getting chilly. So that means it's going to be sweater weather, and soon enough, it's going to be full winter jacket weather. So if you haven't done so already, find your way down to 22 Fresh and get yourself in some of that comfy, cozy weather. I know they got some really nice toques and winter apparel. They also have some really nice bunny hugs. I know I got myself the oversized bunny hug this go around, so it's super cozy for those lazy days. And in doing so, if you use the promo code 306FFB15, you'll receive 15% off on checkout, because of our partnership with 22 Fresh is going to benefit you, the listener at home. So next time you're at 22 Fresh locations or you're on the website 22fresh.com, on checkout, use 306FFB15 to receive 15% off your checkout. Thank you very much to 22 Fresh for being our major sponsor of the 2022 NFL season. So kickstarting the studs and duds of week number 8. I'm going to talk about a player that I dibsed real quick. And Zach put in the group chat, holy crap, I hope if you're playing against AJ Brown, you need a quick little prayer. And immediately I said, dibs stud of the week. And then he continued to have an even bigger day. So AJ Brown was a guy that's been a little bit frustrating to own this last couple of weeks, or this last year in fantasy, coming off the trade. You were really hopeful of a big performance, and you just haven't seen a whole lot of it. A touchdown here and there has prompted you into these high teens types weeks, but we haven't seen those big boom weeks that we saw from AJ Brown when he was in Tennessee until this week. On 11 targets, he had 6 receptions for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he looked like a man against that Pittsburgh defense. And there's the one, he took a taunting penalty at the end of the 3rd touchdown because he was just like literally in this guy's face, showing how big of a man he was. And he was unbelievable. And if you had AJ Brown, he put up these touchdowns real quick and real fast. So you must have come out to an early lead and hopefully didn't have to look back in your fantasy matchups if you had AJ Brown. So AJ Brown is going to be my week 8 stud of the week. I think honestly we could have had about 15 different names in this section here, but let's hear yours for this week, Zach.
I went with Alvin Kamara, running back for the Saints. He had 38.3 points, which coincidentally is 38% of his fantasy points on the season. Very similar to what you said about AJ Brown. Kamara's been quite frustrating to have on your rosters this year, considering you'd have taken him probably in the first 2 or 3 rounds of your draft, and he's been struggling as of late. A couple of bigger games there at the beginning of the season, but he's certainly cooled off to this point. And then not to mention that real frustrating game in London that I know I suffered from there, keeping him on my bench as a late scratch. So seeing Kamara really go off this week for 61 yards on the ground and a TD and 96 through the air with 2 more TDs was great to see. While I don't expect nearly 40 points every week, I do expect to see hopefully more games like this than those like single digit weeks going forward.
And Armand, this one, yeah, I think he set like a history record of tying very limited amount of people that have done this. Talk about your set of the week and the triple crown in a various way, I suppose.
All right. Yeah, my stud of the week is Christian McCaffrey. And how can you not do studs of the week without a guy who rushed, received, and threw a touchdown pass, especially from the running back position. So he went 18 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown, 8 receptions, 55 yards and a touchdown, and 1 throw and it wasn't even a little dinky pass, for 34 yards and a touchdown. So Christian McCaffrey doing it all for the San Francisco 49ers. It's when you saw the trade, you're like, oh yeah, the schemes that Shanahan's going to come up with to get Christian McCaffrey the ball is going to be off the chain. And it was this week. And it's going to keep doing that moving forward. Him and Deebo Samuel will be scary, because imagine the ball fakes that you can do with this offense now as well. Teams won't know who to really try and take away from the offense. And Shanahan does such a good job of just getting the ball in the hands of his playmakers. So CMC 36.26 points this week.
I was looking at the other names of guys that had huge weeks. My goodness, it is unbelievable. I'm just gonna pull it back up here.
I just want to point out as well, before you do that, Tyreek Hill, 188 yards, I think, and no touchdown again. He hasn't had a touchdown since week 1. I was looking at it. That is insane with how much fantasy points he is putting up.
I think he might break the record. I think he might break the record for receiving yards, which would be devastating. But so that coming back to that game, I got man. So old Cordy boy comes on our podcast periodically with the NC Squared boys there. We usually play a little game show with him. That guy I despise so incredibly bad because this past weekend he went to Michigan versus Michigan State on Saturday, and then he went to the Lions versus Miami on Sunday. And he took my jerseys, so I gave him some jerseys to go down there. And he was sending me snaps of them warming up. He goes, "Yeah, look, this is Hockenson," and I'm like, I'm sitting at my house putting together a new bed frame, and I'm like, "Is this real life? I got to watch this guy bragging about going to live my dream." I think he was like 15 rows up, right on the end zone, right on the goal line. It's like this is the dream. And then they had an absolute shootout, so it would have been the ball. Getting upset, just getting upset talking about it. But yeah, that'd have been a lot of fun to watch that one. But we talked about the three names that were three of the top four players. But then there was Pollard, Foreman, Hopkins, Tua, Waddle, Hill, Hurts, Chubb, Moore, Prescott, Etienne, Conklin, Cook, Fields, Williams, Cousins, Mariota, Heineke, and Rondale Moore all had over 20 points, ranging from 38 to 20 points. Like, that is a lot. And then there's so many that are within like high teens, easily the highest productive fantasy week so far this season. So it was a lot of fun to get back into that swing. But talking about the duds, keep this one short and sweet because this is very frustrating. I still put up the most points in the league with starting this player, which is so incredibly frustrating. Devontae Adams, 0.7 fantasy points on 5 targets, 1 reception for 3 yards, and he also had 1 carry for -1 yards, 0.7 points, and they got smoked. The reports were that, he might play because he was battling a bad flu. Then he was good to go. Yeah, he's starting. He's fine. So it was all, you know what? You're not sitting Devontae Adams if he's fine and playing. Yeah, he definitely did not look fine. And 0.7 points is definitely not fine. So my dud of the week, it was unfortunately Devontae Adams. And boy, did he stink. Zach, keep the train going. Let's talk about some stinky players.
Yeah, so Cortland Sutton has been having a up and down season to this point, and it's been kind of culminated in the past 3 weeks where his production has trailed off from mid to low teens, now down to 2.4 in week 6, 3.8 in week 7, and then this week really hitting the crescendo there with 1.8 points. Apparently the answer to which receiver to target in Denver was probably none, I suppose. Looking at it now, like each week, one of them kind of has a decent week, but right now it's looking like Greg Dolch or whatever the hell his name is.
Greg Dolchich,
the tight end there might be.
He looks explosive, man.
He looks like Weird Al Yankovic. Have you guys seen him without his helmet on?
Oh yeah. Hey, he's getting targeted deep downfield. So you know what? He can look like whatever he wants to look like. So far, he's looking like a nice pickup. I'll tell you that much.
Well, yeah, he was riding one of the tight ends to the target in the draft this year. So
riding white and nerdy, that's for sure.
Armin, you want to talk about your dud?
Yeah, my dud is a guy that you don't hear in the duds category very often, but Jonathan Taylor, only 5.6 points, 16 carries for 76 yards, which doesn't sound great, but like Tyreek Hill, he hasn't scored a rushing touchdown since week 1. And that's not going to do it when you're not putting up yards either, and you're not getting PPR points as well. You look at it, and outside of week 1, JT's only put up, I think it's 38 points, I think, on the season outside of week 1 in half PPR, which is just awful. He could put that up in 1 week though, which is why you got to keep starting him. But holy crap, like this is another rant of a disappointing RB that we thought would have a great season, and this is bad if you're a JT owner so far. Guy in our school or our work league put in the group chat, and this is how bad it is. He said JT is available for a good defense and a can of Coke. So
go find a can of Coke, Armin.
I told him I can do a PC cola. That's what I got sitting at home. I was like, I'll make sure it's even cold for you. So he wasn't serious, of course, but he's a buy low candidate for sure. Though, if you want to go out and try and trade for him, you might actually be able to strike a good deal, because you got to expect that this hopefully turns around. Could be a league winner for you if you end up getting him on the cheap end. But I am a little worried, but you never know.
Yeah, I like what you said there about the buy low. I think you shouldn't be concerned about the trade because we've seen with the capability of I can't even remember his name off the top of my head here. Hold on.
Zach Moss.
Thank you, Zach Moss. That's how bad he is. I can't remember his name when we were just talking about him, but I wouldn't be concerned about it. But I mean, some managers might be concerned about the lack of production and now the trade or whatever. He did have to get his ankle retaped up mid game too, so that's something to monitor. But yeah, I'm not against it. Anytime you can buy a premier running back at a low price, I'm all over that. So we'll continue on here into our I guess our weekly preview for week number 9.
"24 hours after the game, you got to move on."
Right now, we're preparing for Cincinnati.
All right, bye week is looking gross. We got lots of teams. Biggest bye week so far. Maybe not the biggest fantasy names, but the most amount of teams we've had on bye week so far. We've got Cleveland Browns, Dallas Cowboys, Denver Broncos, New York Giants, Pittsburgh Steelers, and San Francisco 49ers. And it's tough sledding. I was looking at my roster, getting ready to do some pickups for this upcoming week, and I realized that, oh my goodness, I got a lot of players on bye and some players that I really don't want to have to drop. So it is tough sledding this week for a lot of fantasy managers out there. And so we're going to be progressing into our obviously full stream ahead here. Armin's full stream ahead with who he thinks you should be picking up to replace obviously several quarterbacks, maybe Dak, or hopefully you're not still playing Russ. And then maybe, you're rolling Jimmy G. So if you might need to replace a couple quarterbacks here, and Armin's got the idea, because we had some pretty good production here. Andy Dalton put up good production from your start of the week. And then looking at the rest of our starts, there were some sneaky starts, including and some good sits. Like all of our sits were good. And then obviously Tony Pollard had a huge production, and Paris Campbell was a sneaky little start too. So let's hear it this week, Armin.
All right. So my full stream ahead this week is Justin Fields versus Miami. He's got a softer matchup than he's had the last few weeks, and he's quietly been improving. From weeks 4 onwards, he has 10 points, 17, 19, 24, 26 points. So I can't believe he's actually still available in 41% of leagues on Sleeper, he's available in 59% of leagues in Sleeper, and 58% of leagues in Yahoo. So he's widely available. Over half the leagues have him available, and he is starting to put up over 20 points a game. That Miami defense hasn't been the greatest, and you got to think he's got to be a little itchy with his trigger finger this week, and I'm gambling on the fact that he's going to start airing it out a little bit more, and he's going to start hitting his receivers downfield, and hopefully he can find Chase Claypool and Mooney this week. And I'm gambling a little bit on that as well. So Justin Fields, my full stream ahead.
I like it, especially the new addition. It might help out a little bit too. So something to watch out for. Zach, you want to share your start of the week? I like this one a lot.
Right on. Yeah, I am looking at possibly starting Devin Duvernay, wide receiver for the Ravens against the New Orleans Saints. Over the past couple of weeks, the Saints defense has been middle of the pack. I believe they are 13th or 14th in the league, so slightly above average, I suppose. But they do struggle against the slot. And Devin Duvernay is somebody that is kind of like a secondary or maybe tertiary weapon in that offense, behind Mark Andrews, obviously, and Rashad Bateman. But with Bateman for sure being out this week and possibly Mark Andrews still suffering from the ill effects of that injury, I would not be surprised to see Duvernay put up a pretty substantial week this week. Through the course of this season, he's never been somebody that has had a high amount of targets, but when he is targeted, he does make some bigger plays. And I wouldn't be surprised if he put up anywhere from 10 to 15 points on even just 4 or 5 receptions. He's that kind of receiver. So I would look to start Devin Duvernay.
Armand, this one's a good little start too. This is a sneaky one. Maybe some guys might be able to pick this guy up off the waiver wires potentially too. So I like this one.
Yeah, first off, I'll give an honorary mention. AJ Dillon is getting out of my doghouse here because Green Bay is starting to run the ball more, and he has a good juicy matchup against Detroit. Hopefully positive game script as well. Puts AJ Dillon on the field, gets some more rushing touches, and he might be able to be startable this weekend. We'll see. But my start of the week for sure is Khalil Herbert against Miami. So I'm going all in on Chicago this week, which is weird to say after they've been an offensive desert this year. But he's slowly taking over that backfield. He's looking way better than Monty. And I just like him. I think he's gonna have a stranglehold on that backfield by the end of the season. I feel it in my bones. I'm surprised Monty didn't get traded this afternoon, actually.
Yeah, myself included. Talking about that, so before we get started, that Green Bay, they're running the ball. Oh my goodness, just the worst. I put up big parlay up on that Sunday nighter game, and it was like, okay, usually they'll get some boosters, stuff like that, and I got onto it too late. We were having family supper, so I'm sitting in the garage working there, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna put together a parlay, a little juicy one, and I had it was pretty deep. I think it was like a 6-leg parlay with some pretty big odds, and I hit everything. I hit everything, like the Isaiah McKenzie touchdown, hit everything. All I needed was the Aaron Jones touchdown. I hit everything super early. So I was like, Aaron Jones touchdown? Yeah, that's gonna happen. And put up 200 all-purpose yards or 180 all-purpose yards, but no touchdown. So I lost out on I was I think it was a $5 bet to pay out 500 or something like that, or 400. It was a big payout. And yeah, I was screaming at my television nonstop for Green Bay to stop sucking, and then out of the blue, some no-name guy gets his first reception, 37 yards he's ever had in his career to get a touchdown, and I erupt. But anyways, my stud of the week is going to be Travis Etienne versus the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, they stink against the run. It's been pretty bad, and Travis Etienne obviously is the lone guy in town there. I think he is going to have a big production and a big week. For most people, he is in your starting lineup already, unless you have a little bit of a deeper roster. But he's a guy that you got to give a little bit of confidence to. Since the trade, he's looked very, very good, and I think he's a guy that needs to be automatically in your lineup. There's the rosters where or the teams in maybe Buffalo that you could be a little bit hesitant against, but the Raiders are definitely not a team I'm looking to shy away from, i.e. look what Kamara did last week against them. So I'm all in on Travis Etienne this week. Gonna have our sits here. Zach, you want to kickstart this one?
Sure, yeah. I am looking at sitting all of the running backs out of the New York Jets against the Buffalo Bills this week. This is a game where I suspect they will be behind from Jump Street. I can't see the Jets hanging in there very well with the Bills at all. And then watching this game this weekend against the Pats, the Jets cycled in Carter, they cycled in Robinson, and I know Robinson is still likely getting acclimated to the roster and to the offense, but right now it's just too unpredictable for my liking. So if I was in the spot where I had to play them, I would certainly look for an alternative.
Armin, you want to talk about the same game or?
Yeah, I'm sitting Garrett Wilson this week. I know he's projected pretty high, but Buffalo is a good defense. I just have a feeling that the Jets are not going to be able to move the ball against Buffalo here. Call me crazy, but this is I'm not convinced. And I think it'll be a rough game for any Jets players. Garrett Wilson is the most startable of all the receiving core, so I'd sit him.
It's funny, we're all talking about players from the same game. I'm going to talk about Nyheim Hines coming off the big trade, leaving Indianapolis, now going to Buffalo. There's going to be a lot of hype if he is not already on your roster, coming off the waiver wires. Most people are going to be going to the waiver wires to pick him up. If you already have him on your roster or you went to the waiver wires to get him, I'd be waiting a bit to get him into my lineup. Usually you see those players off the trades, they're not rushed into big performances right away. Even players like Christian McCaffrey got traded, went to San Francisco, and he had limited snaps. He made the most off his limited snaps, but he's also one of the best RBs in the league, in the game. So Nyheim Hines coming into this game, I think it would be not the most advantageous decision to put him in your lineup, just because there still is several backs in that committee. There's still Singletary, there's still Cook, now there's Hines. I'd be a little bit concerned with putting him in his very first week. So I know you're excited if you got him off the waiver wires. That's awesome, good for you. Just hold off a week before you plug him into your lineup. We'll get into Wellsy's wagers, and then we'll wrap this one up.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Woo! Woo! Woo!
Ow.
Love that money.
All right, so Lucas sent me in his picks for this week. We're recording at a different time than usual, so it's tough to get him in before we started the recording. So that's all right. I'll list them off for him. Thursday night, he went 3 for 4, which is a great performance. Sunday, there's a couple of heartbreakers, last second losses, and one real bad blowout. So he ended up going 2 for 5 for a week of 5 for 9. So he's sitting at that record of 25 for 46 at 54%. And we are now moving into this upcoming week. So we are going to talk about Thursday nighter. It's a tough one for Philly versus Houston. So there's not a lot to be had there. The odds aren't super great. So he's limited himself to 2 on the Thursday nighter. He's going to take the Philadelphia versus Houston over at -110. And then he's also going to take the A.J. Brown 2 or more touchdowns at +550. Coming off a 3-score week, he's thinking A.J. Brown can do it again against Houston. So he's putting a little money on the mouth there. And then looking at the Sunday matchups, he's got Detroit versus Green Bay, taking Detroit in that one at +155. Then Jacksonville versus Las Vegas Raiders. We talked about that matchup already a little bit. Jacksonville, he's taking that one at +105. And then Arizona versus Seattle, I think that's actually going to be a real good ball game. He's taking Arizona at -130. And then finally, to wrap up the week, Tennessee versus Kansas City. He's going to take the over in that one at -110. So that is Wellsy's wagers for this upcoming week. As per usual, put him up on socials, and then sometimes he'll find a little booster or something juicy that he likes. He'll tag us on the socials, and then we'll throw them up on usually our Instagram story or something along those lines. So paying attention to those as we go through the week. But anything you can think of, Zach, to throw out there before we wrap this episode up?
And yeah, good luck to the Huskies as they start their playoff push this week against Manitoba, I believe. The game on Saturday was pretty exciting. I'm enjoying watching the games now on TV since I think Max has started to broadcast them. It's been nice.
I'm going to give a shout out to to Regina as they took on the Hilltops this past week. I know we got lots of listeners in Saskatchewan, so it might be a sore one for some of you Hilltops fans. But as a St. Mary staff, we got several players that are on the Thunder, and Thunder continuing their undefeated season and get a chance to go for the perfect season as they're going to take on the Okanagan Sun November 12th. So we're still a couple weeks out, but if you're looking to catch a national championship, Saskatchewan's hosting that one at Mosaic Stadium on November 12th. So if you want to try and get some tickets, or we'll find your way down there, start planning that one, because that's going to be an exciting one and a chance to cheer on Saskatchewan and the Regina Thunder for a perfect season. So that'll be a lot of fun. I really want to get down there. Unfortunately, I have a wedding in Saskatoon the same day, so I'm a little bit disappointed about that. But I'll be at the wedding with the game on my phone, sitting in the lap at the wedding. I think cheering on a couple of our former students.
Talk about a home field advantage. Like that game being at Mosaic, it's the middle of November. It's going to suck outside. It's going to be cold, and those guys from Okanagan are probably not used to anything close to what they're about to experience.
Yeah, there's no way it's gonna be chilly. I'm well, I'll take the home field advantage hopefully for the boys, because I'm hoping they can bring that one home. It'd be cool to see the perfect record, and obviously some of our boys coming through with the national championship would be awesome to see. So hopefully that's at least this exciting game, and hopefully it's not real cold, because like I said, I'd be down there. I know there's gonna be a lot of people that I know going down to that one. So cheering on the Thunder for that one. I guess wrapping this one up here. Good luck in your week 9, everybody. And I guess we'll hopefully these big scores continue in a big way, and follow us along on the socials as we keep pumping some content out there. So thanks for listening, everybody. That'll do it for episode number 66. Good luck this week, and let's talk soon.